Breaking news this evening. Is this the apocalypse? Extreme weather disrupts the world as Category 5 hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions wreak havoc. Some say they saw something in their nightmares, woke up, and now are in hell. People are screaming Judgment Day. Others are screaming government takeover with weather machines. A few believe this is part of the natural cycle of Earth. Whatever you believe, there is one group that doesn't care about the insanity surrounding us. From the words of the commissioner, football must be played to help distract those in dire situations. So the games will still happen this weekend, regardless of the craziness. So those fighting for fantasy football championships can rejoice. Your house might be destroyed, you might be trapped in a flood or escaping impending doom, but you can still hold on to the hope that your team is good enough to claim the ultimate prize. What was that? Oh my God!
Welcome to the quest for the Green Ball, the rise of Ralu Azath. And welcome to our Green Ball Championship League. We have two teams fighting for the ultimate prize, and we have everyone else fighting to win other place matches that will have their own rewards, including the draft order spot for 2023. And we're all hoping to save our planet and the universe from imminent destruction with the awakening of Ralu Azath. But first, someone has to win the Green Bowl and to be crowned champion of 2022. And we will be headed to the Forbidden Palace as the 14-1 top-seeded Elite Mother Tuckers take on my 11-4 second-seeded Dark Ridge Dreamers. It is Legacy member against League Rookie, the first ever 1 vs 2 Green Bowl matchup with a combined 25-5 record, the best in league history by a mile in any match. It all comes down to this, and besides us trying to claim the Green Bowl trophy with our other rewards, the fate of humanity and of our league rests in our hands. This one is looking to be epic, as the computers call it a 50-50 toss-up with so much uncertainty with injuries. Matchups also play a role in this, but we will be diving deep into both of our team squads for this epic preview. My Dreamers lost 138.12 to 99.46 to the Elite Mother Tuckers back in Week 7. It was the running backs and defense that carried the Mother Tuckers back in that one. Jalen Hurts and Justin Jefferson were both on a bye. So let's get going with this. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Both of us lost our starters. Kyler Murray, of course, out for the season. Also missed time earlier with an injury. Kind of a disappointing year, to be honest. Jalen Hurts, though, has been one of the best quarterbacks all year. A recent injury has him on the closer to doubtful side of questionable until we get some practice clarity. If Hurts does go, it is obviously a clear advantage over Brock Purdy on my Dreamers side. Hurts has 3,472 yards and 35 total touchdowns to go along with 747 rushing yards, only 5 interceptions. Purdy's done well, 67% completion percentage, 912 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But he has a low volume and has had to be efficient with his low volume. He has a good matchup, but he can get vultured by some rushing touchdowns. But of course, if Hurts doesn't go, everything's shifted because my Dreamers are going to go with Gardner Minshew, a.k.a. Uncle Rico. 355 passing yards and 3 touchdowns last week as Hurts' replacement. He did throw 3 picks, but he had over 25 points. That's pretty good. And he's got a better matchup in Week 17 as he went up against the Cowboys. And of course, Tom Brady would be going for the Elite Mother Tuckers, over 4,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns. He has had multiple touchdowns in 4 of the last 6 games. But, things aren't all that great when you think about how Brady has gotten shut down in the past by Carolina. The last time he played, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So obviously that's a huge one. Will Hurts play? Will he not play? That could change a lot of things in this matchup. The projections are actually thinking that Hurts won't play, by the way, so it's still 50-50 regardless. And of course, we're going to move on to the running backs because that's where it looks like it's going to be key because we'll both have 3, including our flex. The Elite Mother Tuckers clearly have the edge. Going with my Dreamers, Nick Chubb's been a rock. Over 1,300 rushing yards, almost 200 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns. He does get a rough matchup against Washington. They've allowed the 7th fewest fantasy points to running backs. Just 7 touchdowns on the ground, only over 1,100 yards rushing, over 300 receiving yards. Kind of low there as well. Brian Robinson and Tyler Algier are 2 rookies that my Dreamers are also employing here. They both are getting more carries down the stretch and have some great matchups. The thought here is to go for the unexpected home run and surprise the studs on the other side. I need these rookies to step up. Robinson has 710 yards on 181 carries and 3 touchdowns, but he gets a Cleveland defense that has allowed the third most points to running backs, 1,760 rushing yards, 515 receiving yards, and 18 touchdowns. That includes 15 on the ground. Got to go with that matchup there. Algier has 817 yards on 166 carries, also has 127 receiving yards. He only has 3 touchdowns too, but he gets to go up against Arizona, the 7th most points to fantasy running backs, over 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, including 12 on the ground. So obviously, if the matchups go my way with the volume, hopefully they do something, and they better do something, because the Elite Mother Tuckers are bringing some crazy guys. You got Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler. Eckler has 759 rushing yards, 647 receiving yards, and 16 total touchdowns. That's just mind-boggling. Jacobs has over 1,500 rushing yards, almost 400 receiving yards, and 11 total touchdowns. Very solid, one of the better running backs in fantasy. The problem, of course, is the matchups, though. We do got to talk about that. Eckler takes on the Rams. They've allowed the 13th least amount to fantasy running backs. Over 1,300 yards, barely, just 9 touchdowns on the ground. They have allowed 605 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, though. Jacobs obviously has it much worse, going against San Francisco, the number 1 rushing defense in the league. 885 rushing yards, 519 receiving yards, and only 5 touchdowns. Ouch. The other running back, of course, is Zach Moss. He only had 70 yards last week, but clearly looked like the lead back for the Colts, with Jonathan Taylor done for the year. His matchup is against the Giants, which have allowed the 10th most points to fantasy running backs. Over 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground, also 377 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. So obviously it's kind of a mixed bag, but that could be a key. Next up, we move to wide receivers, and the Mother Tuckers are hoping Tyler Lockett comes back, of course. They also have Tyreek Hill. My Dreamers have Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle. For Hill and Waddle, both of us might be, capping our expectations with the possibility that Teddy Bridgewater's throwing passes instead of Tua Tagovailoa. Hill has been great, though, all year. Over 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. And Waddle's been good for me. He has over 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. They go up against New England, a middle-of-the-pack defense against fantasy wideouts. Over 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. But Jefferson is going to be my key. I need Jefferson to step up. Over 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns, has been matchup proof. Goes up against Green Bay. He had over 30 points against them the last time in week 1. But Green Bay has allowed the 7th fewest points to wideouts, over 2,000 yards, but only 11 touchdowns. And they may triple team Jefferson to take him out of this. I don't know if they want him to go nuts again. Of course, Lockett's going for the Mother Tuckers, 964 yards and 8 touchdowns. If Lockett can go, he plays the Jets, though, which have allowed the 2nd fewest points to fantasy wideouts, 1,749 yards and 10 touchdowns. A lot of those yards do come out of the slot, but they don't give up a lot of deep balls. So we'll see what happens there. Tyler Lockett likes to catch those deep balls. Of course, if Lockett can't go, Zay Jones, Jacoby Myers, Brandon Cooks, all on the bench right now for the Mother Tuckers. Who knows who's employed there? Moving on to tight ends, it looks to be Evan Ingram versus Mark Andrews. Ingram has 723 yards and 4 touchdowns. Andrews has 740 yards and 5 touchdowns. Ingram goes up against Houston, and they've allowed 799 yards and 5 TDs to tight ends. Andrews plays Pittsburgh. They've allowed 723 yards and 3 touchdowns to tight ends. It's looking like the touchdown is going to say who wins this one, as both are actually fairly even, surprisingly. Both of us do have backups, just in case Jacksonville rests their starters, even though Doug Peterson said they won't. And if the Mother Tuckers don't want to play Andrews without Lamar Jackson. Cole Kmet for my Dreamers goes up against Detroit. They have allowed 10 touchdowns to tight ends. Although Kmet hasn't gotten as much volume lately. Tyler Higbee for the Mother Tuckers goes up against the Chargers. They've allowed 839 yards and 4 touchdowns to tight ends. And of course, Higbee had that big game last week. We also got to go through kickers and defenses, because obviously this might come down to this. Nick Folk's been solid all season with the league's most field goals, but he struggled last week, 2 missed PATs. Gold is solid for the Mother Tuckers. He's on a high-scoring offense, gets a good matchup. So yes, we'll see what happens there. Defense, clearly an advantage for the Mother Tuckers. Cowboys are looking to feast on Malik Willis in Tennessee. Derrick Henry could be the only factor in the game, which means that this is like 20-point potential for the Cowboys. Of course, my Dreamers have the Ravens. They've been solid. They get a Pittsburgh team that's not very good on offense, and I need them to have a respectable number to go up against the Cowboys. I can't have the Cowboys outscore my defense by like 50 points or something. Even outscoring by like 15 or 20 points like that, that could be the detriment to me. So I really need the Ravens to step up. So as you can see, I mean, we're in for an insanely interesting battle. Some last-second moves might still be made here depending on what happens. But it can really go either way, and that's why the computers have it as a 50-50 toss-up. Of course, the Mother Tuckers are the favorite based on the season, but all that matters is this week. One of us will be the new Green Bowl champion. It's going to be fun, nerve-wracking. I'm ready for a wild ride. Let's go, Green Bowl! Of course, we all have all of our other wonderful matches happening around the moons of Jupiter. First, let's talk about the third place match. AR's Ayahuasca Plant will host the Siamese Dreamcats at the Peaks of Dracos. The Dreamcats defeated AR's Ayahuasca Plant 102.06 to 80.92 back in Week 10. AR's Ayahuasca Plant is 4-4 at home. The Dreamcats are 3-5 at home. Of course, the winner gets the 9th pick in the 2023 draft. The losing team gets the number 11 pick. And the winner gets the bigger reward. AR's Ayahuasca Plan has a 62.9% chance to win. Mike White versus Jared Goff at quarterback, obviously. Ezekiel Elliott versus Miles Sanders, that's key. Devontae Smith versus Devontae Adams, someone's got to show up. And Dallas Goedert versus George Kittle, I think all those matches loom large here. The Cam Akers versus David Montgomery and Christian Kirk versus DK Metcalf battles look like keys, depending on who might get some touchdowns. And don't count out the battle at defense. I mean, the Colts have an edge at the moment. They've been solid for the Dreamcats. Moving on to the fifth place match. The Multiple Scoregasms host Green Acres at the Secret Sea of Galanis. The Scoregasms defeated Green Acres 92.28 to 88.1 back in Week 11. Both teams will look very different this week with injuries for the Scoregasms, some changes for Green Acres. The Scoregasms are 4-4 at home and Green Acres is 4-4 away. The winning team gets the number 8 pick in 2023 and a bigger reward, and the losing team gets the number 12 pick. Green Acres enters with a 61.8% chance to win. It's Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs versus Amon-Ra St. Brown, and J.K. Dobbins versus James Conner all look to be the key matchups. You also have to say that Leonard Fournette's an interesting matchup as well, because he gets a good matchup. The 49ers defense versus the Cardinals defense might be important too, so don't count those out. In the Consolation Championship, we actually get an unexpected but interesting rematch as the Clash at Demon Head takes on the Stellar Bitches at the Swirling Skies at Havard Point. These two also played each other last year in the 9th place game. The Clash at Demon Head won that one. Back in Week 8 this year, the Clash at Demon Head won a wild 123.94 to 122.58 game against the Stellar Bitches. The Bitches had the Chargers left in on a bye in that one, by the way. Of course, the Bitches are 5-4 on the road this season, stepping it up. The Clash at Demon Head are 3-4 at home, having more success lately on the road. The winner gets the number 3 pick and a small reward. The losing team gets the number 7 pick in 2023. Of course, the Clash at Demon Head has a 60.4% chance to win. Daniel Jones versus Dak Prescott, Derrick Henry versus Christian McCaffrey, and CeeDee Lamb versus Scary Terry McLaurin are the matchups to watch. Latavius Murray versus Chase Edmonds is interesting too, so that we'll see who gets the carries. Buffalo versus the Chargers defense is probably going to be big too. And for our 9th place game, 2 former champions go at it as Risky Business hosts last year's champs. Remember the Titans, the Sulphur Mines of Barbara. Risky Business defeated his rival 102.52 to 64.2 back in Week 7. Risky Business is 3-5 at home, and remember the Titans is 3-4 on the road. The winning team gets the number 2 pick in 2023. The losing team gets the number 5 pick. Risky Business enters with a 55.3% chance to win. Mahomes, Kelsey, and Mixon versus Fields, Barkley, and A.J. Brown look to be the biggest keys here. Higgins versus Dillon could be about who scores, and Garrett Wilson versus Godwin could be a difference maker in the lineup as well. The defensive battle with the Rams and Steelers could be a deciding factor. The Steelers have a better matchup. Lastly, we conclude with the terrible Dick Butt Bowl, where the worst of the league in 2022 square off for a chance to get the number 1 overall pick in 2023 and to avoid the shame of being last. Yes, we also have 2-time champion Loki Lebowski Thor in this one, hosting Uncle Justy at the Salt Mines of Thorgard. These two Europa squads played each other twice this season, and Lebowski Thor won both of them. 105.96 to 88.38 all the way back in week 1, and 63.6 to 56.34 in week 13, one of our lowest scoring games of this year. Uncle Justy is 3-4 on the road this year. Lebowski Thor is 4-4 at home. The winner, of course, is going to get that number 1 pick. The losing team will get the number 4 pick. All that shame that goes with being the dick butt. Uncle Justy has a 63.3% chance to win, with the big matchups being Deshaun Watson versus Justin Herbert, Elvin Kamara versus Delvin Cook, and Jamar Chase versus Jerry Jeudy. The Eagles' defense versus the Bucs is interesting, but Uncle Justy does have clear advantages with Devin Singletary, David Njoku, and Bam Knight. So there you have it. One final week of games for a season that started all the way back in September. For some, maybe in July with that draft prep. Can you believe we made it to this point? I mean, seriously, it's been a wild ride. And yes, a Green Bowl champion will be crowned and league history will be made. We'll see what happens. And that's the content for the show. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you're staying safe from the chaos being brought forth by Ralu Azath. Join us on New Year's Day when the Elite Mother Tuckers will join me to discuss being in the Green Bowl, taking on my Dreamers. It's a big-time battle. It might get testy, might be some trash talk. I don't know. It'll be a fun time, though. Until next time, salut. And get a refresher of the updated playoff bracket before you go.